there's a probably some sort of correlation between was that sheet Eric made, sort of like the metaphysical physical dichotomy thing he had for the different types. I don't know if you'd seen that.
Oh, right. Just the talking about which functions were metaphysical and physical and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Freaking ENTP and INFJ are triple metaphysical. I was just thinking to myself, I was like, I wonder if that has any correlation to copious desire for creative control. Not necessarily just to be in control, because some things aren't fun to be in control of, but a lot of the times it's like, if you're going to make it, you want to make it to specificity.
I don't know, because just watching other ENTPs, like I'm a bit more
physical.
Seem a bit more. Well, no, I was just going to talk about creative. I mean, that's another level.
Okay.
A little more creatively. I'm a little better at like polishing things once I get through the initial creation process.
Uh-huh.
And like maybe Eric.
Eric never really gets around to any polishing.
Like
no, but I get that
quite a bit, but
I mean, I get that though. Sometimes it's like I just want to throw something out there because it's like I'll pretty much have two modes: either here and look at this shit, or nobody ever sees it because at some point I decide it'll never be good enough.
Yeah. Well, I have a bit of a tendency to hoard it and go, well, I could make this better because it's that infinite improvement because I can always see more possibilities for what I did. Like, oh, I could have done it this way. I could have done it that way. I mean, it's like, and it's a little bit of work. Like, I've gotten better at it, but just putting it out, like, you know what? This is done. This is good enough. I'm better at the good enough now. But
right.
It's nothing ever seems actually finished, especially with like lighting.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
it's
I feel like
criticism. Like I think some people do it that, and I got to think about it. It's not really. I don't really care if people criticize it, unless it's like, I mean, it's not going to be that bad. And people are always going to criticize stuff, but it's more just my own like perception of how much more could be done and how much more it could be refined and improved and added to. That's another reason I decided to start publishing. It's like, all right, if I publish this, it is actually officially and irrevocably finished.
Then it's like, are you going to write a new edition? And you're like,
Nope.
No revised editions.
Yeah, and it does give me a little impetus to like write the sequels.
Right. Yeah, I was thinking about what you call it. Like you're talking about like doing like the bookmaking or whatnot. I was thinking to myself, like when it comes to music, to me, making music like at least a good portion of the fun would be getting to create the album art for it because that's something I'd be interested in.
Yep.
Album art, but then also it seems like as far as those interests go, it's like I'd like to goof around and just play, but then also I have this other aspect that it's like, well, I've seen certain bands like, you know, you get like Slipknot or Mushroom Head or guys like that, they dress up when they do their stuff, and I was like, well, that kind of seems cool too. I'd like to mix in like a theatrical element to it. And then it's like I see people at concerts and people are just sort of standing there in the crowd like they're, you know, waiting in line at the library. I'm like, well, that's boring. It's like even if you get mosh pits or stuff like that, it's like I noticed that like in the crowd there's a culture present, and it's not a particularly developed or I don't know. It's like I see potential there, and it's like something I would want to work with, but it's like I don't know. It's just that's interesting as far as like the creative control stuff goes. It's like I think one of my issues is most of my life I've been trying to figure out where I'm gonna specialize, so to speak.
Right.
And I think what I'm trying to come to grips to now is that I will find my sort of greater specialization made manifest out of the things I choose to dabble in.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's. I think that's a good way to do things. Is dabble and I mean, just my personal experiences, I have found a few things that I don't get bored with, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm still amazed that I found those things, and it's like, whoa, I've been freaking doing this for 8 years.
Yeah.
Now look, that's interesting.
That's pretty much me and typology stuff. It's like I got back into this stuff pretty much full swing. I want to say, how many months ago at this point? It's pretty much getting close to a year since I got back into it. And yeah, it's like I keep coming back to it, and I can tell I'm interested because it kind of annoys other people. Because it's like I walk into the room, I'm like, by the way, Enneagram, am I right? And I just start talking about it. But it's like, it's really nice because I can see how different things fit together, and it's like it's super amazing that it's like before I would just spend my life wondering, well, what the fuck is wrong with me? Why am I so broken? Why don't I work? Comparing myself to other people. Why am I not functional in the ways that they're functional? And it's like reading stuff about like polar TE compared to like what's it called, mobilizing TI or stuff like that. It's like I see we're playing with like some of the more pure logical forms of things is far more entertaining. Like dealing with the pure logical forms of MBTI and combining that with NI and trying to sort of put together these mental maps or like this understanding of stuff rather than this sort of more empirical approach to things. I'm finding that for my type that pans out for me. It's like I'm noticing that I have strong interests when it comes to that, and it's just I don't know, there's like a magic in being like, this makes sense logically, and then seeing it play out in reality. I'm like, I'm not crazy. Yay!
Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Because I'm not necessarily the hottest shit when it comes to logic. Like, I need help, so when I get it right, I'm like, yes.
I think accepting that I can be a little irrational is probably
a little irrational.
A little irrational, yeah. And that irrational is okay, and that I'm not like purely like straight up logic driven. I'm like, okay. Like, I am a little crazy. Like, okay. Like, that makes way more sense. The idea of being an ETP instead of an ISP, it's like, okay. So, okay, that makes sense. I should stop trying to, like, super logic absolutely everything. I find that that's a lot easier, like, even being a bit out of the ordinary, that's still an acceptable or at least kind of version of stuff. But being an intuitive dominant is not really quite as well defined outside of, digging a little deeper. Being the smart kid, being the nerd, like that's understood. But being also kind of insane is not.
Well, I mean, I think probably the most insane people are the ones that actually find happiness in life.
What's a different sort of insanity? Everybody's got their own particular flavor.
It's like
rationality. Like it's not something that I thought about much. Like lot of, especially when I was like a teenager, it was very much like rational is be rational. Like I was actually probably a lot more like TE focused too, because I was like, okay, be logical, be practical, all this, and it's like, well, that's eventually I realized I'm like, that's really not working out.
Yeah.
I'm missing something here. And it's like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, there've been sporadic times where I've tried to focus on my super ego more and been like, I need to perform more in the areas that people need me to perform it, and then it's like it's just the heart was there. I wanted to help. However, it's like it's like if I'm a tool, and I guarantee you I am a tool. I kept trying to use myself for what I'm not specified to be used for.
Off-label Ken.
What's that? Off-label?
Off-label Ken.
Yeah. And it was basically like, quit using that screwdriver to try to eat mashed potatoes. I was like, but I don't know what else to do. But shit, what was the thing I was going to say? Yeah, I feel like I'm trying to tap into, because you were talking about like the T stuff. I feel like I'm trying to tap into utilizing my creative function more, which is FE. Because I get into these situations or these conversations where I start talking, and sometimes when I start trying to talk about my motivations about things, I realize that I'm pissing myself off, like talking about them. Like internally, I'm like, shut up, shut the fuck up. And it's like, I don't know. It's like I'm realizing there's like an internal drive, not necessarily just to talk about feelings or stuff like that, but to act them out and just be, I mean, God damn it, to be dramatic, which again, something else I got to come to grips to, because I'm like, I look around and it's like, well, people don't necessarily appreciate that. I'm like, well, other people aren't necessarily good at that. It's like,
Yeah.
I'm finding I'm exceedingly adept at somehow making my drama fun.
Yeah, I get that.
But
I'm like it took me a long time to like get to even realize. I mean, without the language to talk about it, like I wouldn't have described it at the time, but yeah, kind of get a little more comfortable with like FE. Like looking back, I used it, but it was sporadic. Like I tended to default to the very like stoic, colder kind of scowly persona, and I still do. That's kind of my default state. But I've also gotten a lot more comfortable with just kind of like, I'm kind of kooky. I can be kind of kooky, and it's actually fine to be that way. Kind of like extroverted and like, yeah, like you said, a bit more dramatic.
Kookie's fun.
Always generally in a humorous way.
That's the thing, is it's like I'm looking at the ENTPs, and I really need to know more ESTPs, but basically, the mobilizing FE people, and it's like, yeah, you gotta be okay with the fact that, you like the drama, you like to be kooky, stuff like that, and I'm like, shit, if they need to come to grips with that, I really need to come to grips with it, because I'm supposed to be creating shit with this. It's like I look at ENTPs slinging TI, and I'm like, I want to do. When can I sit at the big kids table? But yeah, no. Yeah, so as I said, with like the music stuff and different things like that, and probably comedy, different things, I get frustrated trying to pin it down to one thing. So I think polymathing is going to be my new favorite verb. Although, actually, can we brainstorm right now, since dominant NE is actually no, we got casual here too, so we have dominant and creative NE. So I'm expecting both of you to help me here, because I want to come up with a fun slang term for polymathing.
Okay.
Casual's gonna try polymathing. Casual, God, get with the times, man. Get with the times. Now polymath, like, I would say a polymath is a dabbler savant.